Hi there, I'm Scott, and this is GreatScott Knitting Dyes Yarn, Episode 8. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for continuing to watch. If you're new to this podcast, thank you for checking it out. I hope you enjoy it. Today I will be dyeing one skein of Dyer Supplier 100% superwash blue-faced Leicester. It is a yarn that has South American sourcing, is spun in Italy, and is a 4-ply yarn coming in at 430 yards. The dye I'm using today is Wilton's concentrated food coloring in the colors crimson and black. The technique I'll be using will be to hand paint this skein of yarn. I do have it soaking in a vinegar water bath so that there will be acid present when I begin adding the red and black food coloring. In a project my husband is working on, he is requesting a striped piece of knitted cloth in red, black, and white. I decided to try to dye a skein of yarn that would self-stripe in those colors to make it easy to create this piece of cloth for him. To prepare my skein, I am going to need to protect a section of it from getting any dye on it. If I'm going to have a skein of yarn that stripes in red, black, and white, well, my white section needs to not have any dye on it. So what I'm going to do is measure out about 1/3 of my skein of yarn and wrap it in some plastic wrap so as to protect it from getting any splotches or splatters of dye on it. Now on the edges, and I'm also just going to double check that I'm covering about 1/3 of the yarn. On the edges, one of the things I want to do is to try to prevent bleeding that could occur between the red and the white sections and the red and the black sections. To help mitigate this bleeding, I'm adding some resist ties using some plastic zip ties to the yarn on the plastic. This should help limit the amount of dye that might bleed at this point. I'm going to cut off the excess plastic zip tie so that it doesn't get in my way. And now I am ready to check out the rest of the measurements for the other sections to make sure that I have 1/3 of white, 1/3 in red, and 1/3 in black. Underneath my skein of yarn, I have placed some plastic wrap on my counter so that when I'm done with hand painting, I can wrap the skein of yarn in it for heat setting. So using a foam brush, I'm simply going to apply, using sort of this dabbing motion, apply the dye to the skein of yarn. I may have to turn the skein over in order to get good saturation all the way through the fibers to the other side. As it might be a bit boring to watch me do this, I'm going to go ahead and speed up this process a little bit so that you can see me do it, but you don't have to endure it. I flipped the yarn over and now we'll repeat the process on the other side. This will give me good coverage throughout all the fiber. Having completed painting, I will now wrap the skein of yarn in some additional saran wrap to prevent bleeding while I am steam setting. I've placed our bundle in the steam pot, and I'm going to steam it for about 20 to 30 minutes to set the color on the fiber. It's been about 20 minutes, and so I'm going to remove the steamer basket from the pot and allow the skein of yarn to completely cool before I start the washing process. My skein of yarn is now completely cool and ready to be rinsed. It looks pretty good. There is a little bit of bleeding on the black side, but that's okay. I am going to wash the different sections of color separate from one another just to verify that the different areas have not bled. Initially, with the red section, it looks relatively color fast. I'm not seeing any major bleeding happening in the red section. And so at this point, I will eventually add a little bit of the clear dish soap to help rinse out any of the additional acids that may still be in the fibers. And then I'll also repeat that with the black section. Because the red section looked like it was bleeding a little bit, I'm going to add a little bit of vinegar to the rinse water and allow the section of yarn to soak in a little bit of this water, and then I will rinse again to get that acid back out of it. Once it's completely rinsed, I will hang it to dry. So here is our finished skein of yarn. Overall, it looks pretty good. There's good penetration of the color throughout all of the fiber. The black did break and bleed into the white undyed section a little bit, but actually I kind of think that's pretty. The evenness of the different color sections I'm pretty impressed with, but the intensity of the black and the vibrancy of the red just aren't what they need to be for the project that I'm helping my husband with. So I'll have to come up with something else to do that project. But this skein of yarn I still like a lot, and I'm thinking I'll probably turn that into a pair of socks or maybe a hat. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of GreatScott Knitting Dyes Yarn. If you have, go ahead and click the thumbs up to like this episode. And if you enjoy the content on this channel, click the subscribe button. Enjoy your knitting.